that we Africans communicated with, we call it isipaqa. If I move from South Africa going to Burkina Faso, then I don't know your language. I'll be introducing the symbols. Then we can start communicating. Those two snake shapes are not snakes, they are waves. They represent water. It is to show that in the mother's womb, we stay in water. That is why as the human beings, we can stay for 3 months without food, but we can stay for 3 months without food, but we cannot stay for 3 days without water. Water is very much important for the bodies. The diamond represents an African woman. Reason being, a diamond is a precious and a strong stone, just like an African woman. A fish is a symbol of good life. The hourglass represents us, the men. The top diamond says we need to protect our African women, and the bottom one says we need to shelter our African families. The round ball, it is the moon. That represents fertility. The message on the wall is, a man and a woman were brought together to live a good life under the eye and the guidance of the full moon. That is why whenever there is a full moon, a female species and a male species, they attract each other to mate and produce each other. That's the message. Let's go this way. Or in some parts of Africa, I still use as traditional hospitals.
Pyramids
as traditional African hospitals.
Okay.
That's in Ndaba. It's another name. Yes, it's a traditional hospital.
Okay.
That is where mainly they were used by the African shamans, because African shamans have the powers to use the tip of the pyramids to absorb the powerful energies so that they can have the power to heal, protect, and predict the future of the village. And that will be the prediction of HIV and AIDS, the virus that is affecting us all in this world, that the elder did in 1979. In America and Europe, they started to know about the deadly virus that was in 1983. In South Africa, it was in 1985, and those years were just deadly viruses. They never had the names until 1989-90, when they were given the name and said AIDS. In the vision of the elder, there were these two great characters, one of the greatest kings of Africa, who was so greedy and stubborn, who didn't want to allow any man from the village, the king of kings, to allow any man of the continent to marry or date and share the powers and the strength of a woman. Only men of the royal families and those who were so close to the royal families were allowed to date and marry and share the powers. As a stubborn and a greedy man, he ended up marrying 7,500 wives. Some of them, because there are so many, doesn't remember them. Remember, in Africa, once you get married by the king, you become the queen, and your life has been under the watch, has been protected by the warriors. Each and every movement that you do it's been under the watch, has been watched. So some of them, when nature calls, you got to respond positively. So they couldn't respond. Hence, they heard that there were visitors who coming from Europe. So as the queens coming down to Africa, and they are coming with the boats, in those boats there are drums that have viruses that are going to be thrown into Africa. Some of the culprits are infected by the deadly viruses. They mated with the queen caught the viruses, they brought the virus in the family. The king catches the virus, and then the traditional the medicine that will be the medicine man who is advising the king who's telling the king that the virus that is having, it is beyond his powers. That's the virus that's gonna swap the world by its storm. In the next coming years, the people of this earth will be infected and affected by the deadly diseases. But African continent, it is the one that's going to be mainly affected and infected. Reason being, America and Europe will be still using Africa as a dumping area through greedy presidents. Yes, there will be a medicine, but that medicine won't kill the deadly virus. It will tame the viruses. The only time we get the medicine, that is when traditional doctors and modern doctors can come together in the laboratory and work together. Hence, we've got the ARVs. That doesn't kill the virus, they tame the virus. He came back again in 1999 and said that if they can give the African shamans and the traditional healers a chance to fight against HIV and AIDS through sound and other African herbs, definitely AIDS can be cured. The following day, the former health minister of South Africa, Mantam Simang, said, whoever says can cure HIV and AIDS must be arrested. So he managed to refrain himself from this statement. The king was killed by the deadly virus. In the middle, we find the penis of the king. It is to show all the sexual transmitted infections that causes the virus itself. If you look at all the sexual transmitted diseases, when you look at them up there, some of them they turn themselves into a human face. If you look at the human face, originally it's not a human face. It is the ribbon that you are using it to campaign for HIV and AIDS as the law. Patients of HIV and AIDS, when the CD4 cancer of something happens with the body, they lose the body, they become skinny and weak, and the head becomes big.
And the head becomes big.
Yeah. And then that will be the African traditional medicine gods. He's sitting with the calabash. And that calabash is a concoction of African herbs. The number one herb there is an aloe vera. And then it says that all types of disease, 90% of the types of disease that are coming in this world, aloe vera will be the number one plant to be used. And Africa was a Jurassic Park. The Europeans say during the time of the dinosaurs, there were no human beings. Fine, we cannot say no to them. In Europe, there were no human beings. In Africa, our elders lived with the wild animals and the dinosaurs. That is why in South Africa, our stories, Moshanyana Sankatani, Tsilani and the giant, they speak about the connections of the human beings and the wild animals, including the dinosaurs. And this site is to show how people were buried in Africa before the modern way. In Africa, when you are a person who is so respectful, who respects the earth, who respects the elders, who lives a respectable life, whatever you do it out of respect and love. When you die, you become a good ancestor. As a good, positive ancestor, when they bury you, you will be honored by seated up straight, face the east, and be wrapped with a cow skin. Why face the east? The sun rises from the east. Why they wrapped with a cow skin? Because in Africa we say a cow, it gives birth to a human being. They are taking you back into the mother's womb, so that whenever there is a new child in the family, your spirit can jump into the child and you've been replaced spiritually. That's our African reincarnation. When they bury an African woman, on the left hand they put a fruit seed, example a peach seed. On the right hand they put a vegetable seed, example a pumpkin seed. So that when you arrive on the life of the ancestors, your duty is to feed the nation. And that is when they finish closing that grave. At the same time, it represents the grave of a child. The grave of a child in the village would grow each and every day. Reason being, as a stranger, you don't have to just pass the grave of a child. When you see the grave of a child, you got to pick up a stone, speak to the stone, and give that child the respect. When you do evil things, you become a bad person, you become a thief, a witch, a murderer, a rapist. When you die or be killed, your body will be thrown upside down into the grave. They won't close the grave so that the vultures and the dogs can eat the flesh. Why the culprits are buried like that? Because of their evil, they cannot reincarnate with us. They got to go with their evilness. But we, just the family, we do perform the rituals for them. The reason why we perform the rituals for them, we don't have to forgotten about them. We have to perform them so that they cannot turn their backs against us. They got to protect us against who wants to cast the evil spirit against us.
Yeah.
Then as times went, when the Western came, they introduced this way of burying people. Today we are into the granite tombstones. In the granite tombstones, we find the cross, the name, the surname, the year you born, passed on. In Africa, we place the calabash to pour African beer to connect with the spirits. And all of us, we write RIP, which stands for
Rest in peace.
I see or rise in prosperity. It was a disgrace in Africa. People say, as a child, you will grow, become older, and leave this earth without knowing the age of your parents. Because of once you know that age of your parents, it becomes a disgrace. That is why some of the elders today, When you ask them their ages, they will tell you, I don't know how old I am. I was born the time of the locust were coming this way. And then some, they were given by the system and say, okay, they look at you and say, we were born in 1920. Okay, let's say 22. They sometimes might be older than him, but the document says he's older than you because of our parents, grandparents don't remember. Age is nothing, doesn't count to them. What does it count? It's the life itself, the lifespan. That is why the white people are putting that line, the lifespan that you live in this world. Oven that influenced the Italians to make their pizza 10. That is where the mothers or the grandmothers of the village would cook the bread for the villages. That is why in Africa we say there are no ovens in Africa. We started to know about the ovens when the Western people started to introduce their Western life. And then in Africa we don't have hunger. We started to experience hunger when the East, the first people to invade in Africa, came to invade Africa and take some of our greatest and powerful ornaments and take our skills in terms of the food. And then when they left Africa after they were chased by the African women, they left with billions and trillions of slavery. Today we focused on the West, forgetting about the East. And then the East and the West is the one that they say they feed Africa. We cannot feed us because of everything that's here. Traditional houses in a round shape. In fact, in Africa we don't have houses. Houses came with the Western people. We are the people of the huts or the rondovels. Why we say rondovels? Because of the in a round shape. They represent a womb of a woman. That is where African women would give birth. Whenever they gave birth, they will call only the virgin girls to come and celebrate the birth of a child. Each and every virgin girl will be given a chance to stick her reed on top of the heart to show the father and the men of the village that there is a new child in the village. The father and the men were never allowed to see the child for the first 3 months. Reason being is to give the mother, the virgin girls, and the women of the village to come together and connect and transfer positive energies and the rhythms to the children. Today in the modern life are those who still follow that little bit of tradition. Was a father, you take 10 days before you see the child. The children of the modern, the Mandela children, same time they see the child. The doors are small. Reason being Africa, it is the land of the ancestors. When you come into an African heart, you got to kneel or bend as a sign of respect that you're bowing to our ancestors. And then usually in Africa is the land of the kings and the queens. We bow for the king and the queen. They don't bow back for us. But when they come into our heart, that's your territory. When they come in, they give you the utmost respect. They got to bow for you. And that one, you see, it's so huge. That is the mother. That is the mother's heart. The mother's heart becomes big because of the mother lives with the children. Today the doors are big. The reason why we make them big because of people of the modern are so lazy. When we start reaching 50, we start complaining about the back. We cannot bend anymore. Once you've got complaints, unlike the people who come from the rural, especially the ancient one, they were so healthy and strong. At the age of 90, a person will be running like a boy who's got 18 years old.
Right.
That will be the heart of the father. And that one belongs to the traditional healer of the village. Each and every village must have a traditional healer to protect them, to help them in terms of the illnesses and other stuffs. Heart. Men and women, we don't sit in the same side. Women and children, they sit there right on the floor, and then the men will sit on the high rise. Reason, women and children sit on the floor behind the door. Unfortunately, don't have a door. And then the men, they sit on the high rise. The reason being, whenever there are enemies attacking the family, the door can be able to protect the women and the children, whilst we, the men, are fighting with the enemies outside. Why in Africa we let African women to sit on the floor, not on the high rise? It is because we still believe in the mother nature. We believe that when the mother nature wants to bring life into her nature, she still uses the body of your body. So as a woman, as an African woman, when you sit on the ground in Africa, you get an opportunity to absorb the rhythm and the positive energies of the mother nature, so that whenever you give birth, you can transfer those energies and the rhythms. That is why in ancient time it will take 3 months. Now we take 10 days. And the hearts can serve the 4 seasons of the year. When it's winter, it is not cold, it becomes warm. When it's summer, it becomes cool. When it's raining, it doesn't leak. When it's windy, it doesn't blow. African women, when they build their huts, they use only natural resources. It's only in the urban area that is we use the concrete. Maybe it is because of we are next to the resources, but African people, even today in the rural areas, they still use the cow dung. Why the cow dung? Because the cow dung protects us from 90% of the domestic illnesses. The domestic illnesses. And that is why we prepare the fire. When you make the fire again, we can't use the wood, because the wood has too much smoke, we can suffocate. We take the very same cow dung, mix it with the straws, dry it. When you burn it, the heat will prolong, and the smoke is so little that smoke will be there to protect us from the mosquito bites.